Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I had the opportunity to speak at length yesterday, and I'm just going to conclude my remarks today, but I do think, given some of the comments that have been made by other members in the House, that there is some clarification required, Mr. Speaker, which is relevant to the previous topics that I was bringing forward around poverty, housing and equity. And that's this, what seems to be real confusion about what a minimum wage is and what it's for, what a basic income is and what it's for, and what a livable wage is and what it's for. So I'm going to take this opportunity to kind of conclude my remarks by making hopefully some clarifications for those who are watching and for the members in the House. So even those that have been participating for a number of months now in the Special Committee on Poverty still seem to have some challenges with this. So it's, I think it's something that clearly is difficult. And the more that we talk about it and normalise understanding all these different terms and what they mean, perhaps it'll be easier for us to make decisions that will actually benefit islanders. The minimum wage was originally implemented to protect workers and ensure that they had a minimum wage that meant that they could live on what they earned. That's where it came from, and that's why it's so important. We've all agreed, pretty much, I think, in this House that a minimum wage currently is not enough to live on. And in fact, we actually have data done by the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives, specifically looking at how much it costs to live and what you would need to earn as an hourly wage. And in Charlottetown, that's $19.30 an hour, which is a pretty far cry from the $13 an hour that we'll be at as of April 1. Let me be clear before I am quoted in any way, Mr. Speaker, I am not suggesting that we immediately implement a minimum wage of $19.30, though that would be great. I am obviously also an economist and realistic that there needs to be a bridge from where we are now to achieving a wage. And so some of the other measures that I've been talking about are things that we do to do that. Mr. Speaker, a basic income was significantly researched, discussed, presented, and we have an extensive report presented in this House and tabled that goes through exactly how and why a basic income is something that we should have as a tool in our toolbox for PEI. But that report made it abundantly clear that a basic income is not the only solution to poverty. It is not a huge, great big bandage that will fix everything that we have here. It is a very large tool, but it is one tool of many. That report made it very clear that we would need to retain and potentially even expand other programs that support islanders with needs that would not be met by a basic income alone. A great example of that are the additional supports that are provided to disabled islanders who would require those supports to continue. So when we talk about a basic income, we need to be really clear that we are talking about providing a foundational income for all islanders so that they are not in poverty. It is literally the base foundation to ensure that islanders do not suffer from poverty. It would not be replacing a minimum wage in any way, because the ability to work has nothing to do with whether or not you should be in poverty. What a basic income does is ensure that no one is poor anymore. When they work, the money they earn should be paid at or above a minimum wage, whatever that minimum wage is. And they should have the employment supports and rights and standards that anyone should be afforded when they work. When they work, that money they earn is on top of that basic income, and our report was very clear that a basic income would be reduced until it was no longer required because somebody is earning enough. So there is no connection between how much we pay people as a minimum wage and the need for a basic income. We recognize that those two things work together to make our economy stronger. Mr. Speaker, it also means that things like programs like the child tax benefit, which has done the most impactful thing that has happened for child poverty in Canada ever, would continue. EI would continue. These are programs that provide alternative forms of income. In fact, they are in their own way a form of an income support. The child tax credit, OAS, GIS, these are all ways that we provide income to islanders in need now. They are not sufficient, but they have a huge impact, and they would not be removed. We are not in a position where we would consider taking away programs that do the right thing for islanders. In the long term, if we are able to bring basic income as a tool into our toolbox, Mr. Speaker, then yes, we may see the end of social assistance. And that is not a bad thing. But in the interim, we are not in a position to suggest that we get rid of anything. What we are in a position to do is to suggest that it's time that we start thinking about all the different tools that we have in the toolbox. It will take a long time, hopefully not too long, but it will take a long time for us to get to the point where we have a basic income in place that is solid and a part of our social justice system in which we can start unpacking some of the other things. So the list of actions that I identified yesterday, Mr. Speaker, around social assistance, around accessibility supports, around low-income supports, housing, community services, and equity, those are all tools as well. And those are tools that we can start implementing now, next week, next month. We do not have to wait for some federal government official to come in on their white horse and save us. We are perfectly capable of doing great things now by taking good action now. And anything we do is going to mean that there are fewer islanders living in poverty. There are fewer islanders who are not experiencing the island that we want everyone to experience, and that picture of poverty here in PEI is reduced. Then when those federal agents on their white horses or whoever they may be ride up, we're ready. We're ready because we know who it is that we need to serve. We can talk about how much it's going to cost. We know where we've already achieved. We can demonstrate that we're in the game, Mr. Speaker. That's why the Poverty Elimination Strategy Act that I'm going to be bringing forward later on this session is so important. It allows us to actually show and demonstrate to potential partners, including government and community partners, that we actually take this seriously, that we intend to provide a structure that will support taking meaningful action on poverty, that we can and will measure and provide the data that, frankly, the federal government is going to expect us to provide. Mr. Speaker, I really appreciate the opportunity to respond to Throne Speech and share some of these perhaps not so crazy ideas and actions that we can take. I truly believe that we are in a really amazing space currently. COVID has been one of the most difficult things I think that many people have experienced, but it also has and does create opportunity for government to be able to pivot. And this is one of those spaces, Mr. Speaker, where a pivot is not only, an option, but it's a necessity. If we truly mean that all islanders matter, and if we truly think that all islanders deserve to live in security and dignity, then now is the time to act. I look forward to working collaboratively with the Minister across the floor and with any other member of government who chooses to take this seriously. I think we have a place here to change our space for the better, and that is, frankly, a legacy I think it's worth leaving behind. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to speak today.